Cool guys. I'm really excited to have you guys on today because we're going to be really diving into basically currencies as well as so before we're going to get into that, we're going to get into the purpose pulse again, right? So I wanted to make sure that everybody has their purpose pulse right now. Doesn't have to be complete, doesn't have to be perfect, none of that stuff. The whole point of these Saturday workshops are to go over those things and talk about them and see what people are having issues with in the purpose pulse. I'm going to go into a brief lesson today for purpose pulse, and then just to kind of go over a quick high level overview, just so that way we're back on the same track and we can go and rediscuss like what you guys have already built out. We can talk about it and why it's important. Any of the issues you guys might have had while building this. So, you guys can hear it from your peers. I think that's a big, like, one of my favorite parts of this cohort is now that like you guys are in it together, you guys can hear some of the struggles and pains, and we can all like kind of piggyback off of that and really dive into, hey, maybe I'm overthinking it, right? Am I trying to be too creative? And that's okay. And then this is going to be the only workshop where I'm going to really dive into lesson. And that's going to be on the currency function, right? I was going to go into Keystone Clients a little bit, at least try and finish that module. But I just think currency, we really need to nail down currency because, and you'll see why currency is so important across everything. Because even if you don't productize your business, you'll start to realize why it's important, even if you're doing MPCs or whatever. So at the end of the day, this whole program is not just to get you to move away from agency, which I know Isaiah and I talked about, Damien and I talked about it a little bit too. We're not trying to, there is workbooks for this. There's, you guys are going to get your portal tonight or tomorrow, hopefully tonight. And you'll be able to like work through this stuff as well. But at the end of the day, this isn't just to like get you to move away from contingency or retained. It's not even to get you to charge for your services up front. Like that is a byproduct of what if you actually get this down and you productize properly, it will be a byproduct of what you do. It's to enhance your business. It is to enhance how you go to market. And then when you do stuff like your intakes, when you do stuff like your breakdowns on a review of a candidate, when you're doing your initial presentation of your candidates that you have from your retainer or your fractional or even your contingency searches, like whatever you're doing, the idea is that your client should understand why they're doing that with you and spending their time, their money, their effort to do those things. And that's what currency is all about. Okay. So how we reframe every step in your process to make it more valuable to them, and that it makes sense to them. And then you can also build your content, your programs, your ebooks, like all this stuff that you're going to use in your lead magnets. All that stuff will come from, really identifying those currencies and having your productized vision of the business. Okay. So everybody good with that? We're all on the same page there. Anything confusing about that? I want to know about that. No? Cool. All right. So let's get into it then. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm not going to be able to see you. I just really, because I need to get a secondary screen for this side of my desk. I have a second screen on my main desk where I do my work, but this is my production desk. So I'm not going to be able to see you. So if you guys have a question while I'm doing this presentation, just write it in the chat. And then once I'm done, I will like kind of come back, or I'll come back to the questions in the middle of my presentation. Okay. So let's go share. All right. All right, purpose pulse. So basically, one of the big differences in this version of purpose pulse is, I read a book called Traction, and I've freaking loved it. And I've read it now probably 3 or 4 times because specifically those beginning 3 chapters, because it was just so good and it related so well to not just the function of our business as a recruiter, or as a business, you running your own business, making sure you have the right traction, the right people, and ensuring that your business is set up in a way where it can bring in great companies, great talent, great revenue, and hit your big vision all the way around. But it also just related really well to the function of recruiting, right? And if you guys are as recruiters, you guys should all read traction, not just for your business, but as in the perspective of why you recruit or why a company would recruit. And you can actually use a lot of what they say and some of the even the worksheets that they give, to help you do these intakes with your clients. And I think it's a fantastic book. So if you haven't read Traction, definitely read it. I recommend it. It's a fantastic book for this. But one of the big things that they talked about was defining your core focus. Okay. And basically, in the core focus is essentially what the purpose pulse is, right? So the purpose pulse, here's our game plan for what we're trying to do. Ultimately, we're trying to craft a clear vision, trying to set a mission, and we're defining our core values. That's the big part of purpose pulse, right? So how many of you guys feel like you're marketing, you don't know who you serve, or everything, you're kind of everything to everyone? I talked to Isaiah about this. Like, if you're one of those three or all three, just list one for marketing, two for don't know, and three for everything in the chat. And if you have all three, just go 1 through 3. That's cool. So I want just to kind of get a pulse of that real quick. So James is a 1, Isaiah is a 1, 2, and 3. Josh, 1 and 3. Yeah. 2 and 3. Damien. Yeah. Okay. Megan, what are you feeling? 1. Got it. Cool. So it's like, at the end of the day, you might feel that way, and that's because haven't really defined our clarity. We're lacking clarity in this situation, right? And we need to understand our mission, vision, and core values. And that's what it's all about. So why most recruiters fail in doing this and defining their core values and focus, they're unaware that this is even a thing. Like a lot of us kind of are just, going out and doing our thing. We have shiny object syndrome, which kind of related to some of the things that we were talking about yesterday. Like, I've got all these ideas now, and like I can probably go with that. And there's all this like automation and AI and like all these things. I'm going to go try this and go try that. Megan, we really dived into that shiny object syndrome situation on your desk when we first started working, right? Like, instead of getting pulled away all the time and trying to figure it out, we need to really clarify that vision. And we're ultimately impatient. We want things now, right? Like, I need this today. I'm going to go start my business, and I'm just going to go pick up a bunch of business right now. That's the main thing. I just need to go bill. I need to go get 3 clients. I need to do whatever. And it's like, yeah, but you didn't do the foundational work. So it's going to make your whole entire life so much harder. And this is really your secret advantage, right? Everything comes from your purpose, from your core focus. It's the core piece of everything. So this is just like the one part of this entire program, and you're going to be doing this yourself. And like, one of the things that you might even take away from this is, hey, look, like, I really liked how Will talked about the core focus part and really defining that and defining the vision. I might put that into my program, right? You might have in your intake and discovery part, that might be a purpose pulse situation there. I would recommend that, really understanding the culture of the company, why, and the vision of the role, or whatever streamline you want to go to. It's fine. You go as micro or as macro as you want to, depending on whatever whatever you think the important thing is in your program, right? So the purpose pulse action steps is to clarify that vision. So what's vision? Gino Wickman in Traction says, getting everyone to row in the same direction can dominate in any industry, in any market, against any competition, anytime. So at the end of the day, believe to be true. That's how you define it, right? Why does this organization exist, and who do you serve? So I think in the beginning, in the precision prospecting and some of the stuff that we've done together for the one-on-ones that we've worked on for some of you, is that originally I just focused on like, what do you believe to be true? So now we're going to really kind of understand, why does your organization exist and who do you serve, right? So what do you believe to be true? is basically in recruiting, personally, client or candidate experience, et cetera. Like whatever is important in your vision of your recruiting program, your recruiting process. So all of us come into this like into recruiting or maybe have started out on our own or whatever it is because we believe that recruiting is a fundamental part of business. And if you don't believe that, then you probably are in the wrong industry. You shouldn't be here, right? Because recruiting is so fundamental for everything we do. People are such a key, critical part of everything we do in business that if you don't have the right people in the right seats, then there's a problem, right? And you're never going to get to your goal. You're never going to get to your vision, right? So at the end of the day, your vision in what recruiting is and like what you believe to be true in recruiting and how people attain the type of talent that they actually want to attain, the type of customers that you want to work with, and the belief system of your recruiting process, the hypothesis of your recruiting process is so important. And it all stems from what you believe to be true. So some of us might believe to be true that content is the best way to get in front of candidates, right? And companies believe that, or you believe that companies who have a great content game will be able to attract better talent easier, right? That might be something you believe. So that's a big part of what you are going to put into your what you believe to be true, right? In the recruiting function, right? Personally, you might believe, hey, like I believe that everyone should be treated like people, right? It could be very simple, right? But at the end of the day, it's a simple concept. But as businesses and even as people, we don't always treat everyone like people. We don't treat humans like humans at the end of the day anymore. And it's becoming less and less that we kind of look at people as numbers or metrics or whatever it might be. And so what we want to do is when we have this vision, we want to have supporting docs that go with it. So whatever we believe to be true, we want to have something that you can either look back on and it's either a book or article and experience, exactly kind of what I did here, which is Traction, right? I'm using Traction. I'm using someone else, Gino, as my validator to support my belief that core purpose and core focus and purpose pulse is so critical. It's the foundational piece of everything that I'm using that as a supporting doc. You can also use your own case studies to do that as well. But just make sure you have documents and you can showcase some sort of like metric and timeline or at least at the very minimum a metric of truth that will allow you to support your argument and what you believe to be true. Okay. So an example is recruiting process is broken, right? Candidate experience matters. Great hiring starts with relationships. Supporting doc is from recruiter.com. 40% of candidate reject offers because another employer gave them an offer faster, right? So if your core thesis on what you believe to be the best process is a fast, and engaging process, then you need to have supporting docs for that, right? Because that allows you to validate that belief. So why does your organization exist, right? So you either are going to have a purpose, cause, or passion. It doesn't have to be all three. It can just be one. In fact, I would prefer one. We want a singular focus on that. So purpose, cause, or passion. So an example is to delight candidates. That might be a purpose of yours. Like you believe that candidate experience is really important. So my goal or my vision is to delight candidates. I want to drive community and a passion for recruiting. It could just be that, right? I have a passion for helping people. I mean, Ruby Murphy, if you go watch the live webinar we did on Thursday, she talks about passion for her passion for actually helping and serving other people. Like she was like, I was all about it. I was in I was at nonprofits and doing work with people and helping out communities. And this kind of just lined up really well with my passion for helping people. And so I just went full in on that and I just focused on helping people. And she's been able to create a really great business for herself because that's what she's driving with, is that passion for help, right? So some of you, and this is completely fair, you guys might think, oh, well, money. I'm super motivated by money. I'm passionate. Greed is good. You might be Wall Streeting it, right? So, at the end of the day, that can be the thing, but I don't recommend it because it's just super self-serving and you got to find companies and people who align with that, right? You could, but I just don't really like it. So you really need to understand your clear purpose. So if who here has a clear purpose, like that can or that has like that purpose, cause, or passion that you believe in your recruiting cycle? Like who can clearly define it in 3 to 7 words right now? Put one, two, or three in the chat box. James, BT, what's BT? Between two and three. Okay. Gotcha. So yeah. So you really just if we can define that, we can really get clear on this. And I mean, Simon Sinek talks about how people don't buy products, they buy their vision, they buy their why, right? There's just really good clip of him talking about why in companies, right? And he says, Apple went to market. Like really great companies start with their why and then they get to their product. And basically, he said that, and I'll send the link to this too. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, you probably are just going to hear me say it again. Sometimes we just need repeating, right? So, he says Apple goes from why and then they go to their product when they sell to companies. So, and traditionally, companies start with their product and then go to their why. And it's such an uphill battle doing it that way. So, an example in recruiting would be like, I've got a great candidate who is going to do this for you, and this is why it matters, right? And that is just kind of this uphill battle because if you go, I've got a great candidate, oh, I've got enough candidates, I've got enough resumes, like just okay, whatever, right? That's the immediate response, especially in today's market. I've got this recruiting agency, oh God, recruiters, like I'm so tired of you. Right. And so everybody's kind of just frustrated with recruiters and salespeople, right? Because they're just getting bombarded with product all day long. But with Apple, they went from why to product. So they basically said, we believe that the world is a beautiful place of design. I'm not saying that this is exactly what he said, but we believe that the world needs changing and innovating. And it's built on design culture and like and creativity. So our how is, we created great products that, so we create great products that are focused on that, on assisting creatives to do more and impact the world. And we just happen to make computers, right? So that is like their path to the product. And so people get riled up by that. And so recruiters are kind of the same thing, right? So I believe that, the recruiting system is broken. Again, going back to Ruby, when I loved her call because she really talked about, she just had this thing like a recruiter that doesn't suck. I'm a recruiter that doesn't suck. And that's like her tagline. It's fantastic because it's like when you come in with your passion and your vision and your belief, you can really understand your why and you can put it into 3 to 7 simple words that people can quickly understand and go, oh, okay, that makes sense. It's actually why, hone in on this a little bit. It's actually why politicians are failing right now and businessmen are taking over the political infrastructure, right? Like Donald Trump, like the Brazilian president, like that just got ousted or got voted out. The Argentina is having this situation right now too, and it's because they are focusing on being the anti-politician. Like that's the thing that they're running on. And so they're getting voted into office because they're the anti-politician, they're anti-swamp. And they're starting off with, I'm here for you. And I believe that the system is broken. So they're starting with their vision and their why, and then they're going into it, right? So your 3 to 7 words, your why needs to be 3 to 7 words. It has to be simple language. It has to be big and bold. There has to be this aha moment that comes from it. It has to be heartfelt that you actually believe in. Like this is something that you truly believe to be true in recruiting or in your business or how you work with people or whatever it might be. it has to involve everyone. So it should be something that universally people can understand, like that's an important vision. That's an important why. That's an important purpose, right? They may not believe that the way you're doing that purpose is the right way. And they might not even believe in your purpose either, right? They might say, "Oh, that's like, oh, you might be, hey, I believe that the world is heating up, right? And something controversial. Or I believe that diversity, equity, inclusion are something that are critical for businesses today." Now, I would refrain from trying to be polarizing if we can use words to I don't know why DEI is now polarizing, but anyway, regardless, if you don't want to be polarizing, you want to create better words. But it also can help too if you are polarizing, right? You quickly identify who's your audience, and people who subscribe to that are going to want that. People who don't subscribe are going to comment on it, right? So whatever, like you could be polarizing, that's perfectly fine, but at least everyone understands it and it's making them feel some way, right? It's not about money. That's why I don't really like the money piece, and it's bigger than a goal. Okay. So, and the reason why I say that's bigger than a goal is because that's going to be in our mission, right? So, who do you serve? But we don't want to confuse this with our niche. Okay. We're going to get into niche and currencies, but who do you serve can be very, very simple. You can say, I serve businesses that are growing. You could say businesses, candidates who want a better life for themselves, right? Who believe that they have a better, they're worth more than what they're getting paid. That could be it too, right? Whatever you want. But the core focus is essentially your vision statement. So it's belief plus your purpose, your cause, or your passion. So purpose, passion, or cause, PPC. Plus your who, which is the person you're serving, is that it's your core focus. This is your vision statement, right? So an example, if you put all those three together, would be delight clients through all facets of the hiring process, right? That could be a core vision of yours. Creating lifelong relationships and raving fans with the DevOps community. Hey, I mean, that sounds similar to you, Megan. Solving the modern problems of SMB finance teams, right? So we are really kind of focusing on who we serve and what we do. So I want to go and start opening it up here to everybody. Now, everybody's kind of done their vision statement. Let's go through it together, guys. Let's have some fun. So to start off with, who wants to start? Who wants to start with their vision statement and talk about what they do for their vision statement? They wrote for their vision statement. No one wants to start. I'm going to call on people. All right. James.
Mine changes every day. So it's one of the things, like when we started on this, so our niche, whatever. So when I originally came into business, it was to recruitment was done really badly in my industry when I was in marketing, and then I started a marketing agency, but we needed to niche down, hence why I then went to market research and now into gaming. Like I'm a gamer myself, like I love gaming, love the industry. So it's like, what is it? And I put an interesting post out yesterday and I got an amazing traction. Like my inbox just blew up. And what it was, I just was hearing a lot of candidates coming to me of like, hey, the market's a bit screwed at the moment. Like all I want to do is I want to go and work with a public or a developing house or a studio and just work really close with like a games developer. So there's obviously a game that people know about, and it's like just being the Sully to the Nate and speaking their language. So it's kind of like being that extension to the candidate. So the thing is, on a candidate experience, a candidate, like, unless you get close to them, find out who they are, what their motives are, become their friend, become their advocate, then you can't really do that candidate experience. To me, like, that's where it falls apart, where people think, I give a great candidate experience. I don't want to just give a great candidate experience. I'll just walk all over you and treat you like a commodity. What it is like being that friendship of, so the example is getting close to you to understand your motives, but understanding your industry and understanding what it is that you want. So it's quite hard because there's many different aspects to it. It's like, if I were to break it down like a sentence, it's like understanding all of your needs and being that friend, But that to me just sounds a bit wanky, because I wouldn't want to go into something with someone wants to be my friend. You become their friend. Do you get what I
Yeah.
mean? As we
So
get
your
further down the line.
relationship, so your core function of everything that you're talking about is relationship driven, right?
Correct.
So it's, hey, like, I believe relationships are the key point to any candidate experience and hiring process. You know, diving into those relationships are, and here's some proof as to why. I surveyed 50 different or 5,000 different candidates over the time, and one of the big things that they've all mentioned was the reason that they liked working with me is because I had a deep relationship. I took the time to understand them and develop the relationship. In fact, they ended up hiring, or they ended up taking the jobs with companies that also made them feel that way. So my belief system is that we need to delight candidates through the experience of when they go through process and through the hiring process, right? So that's a kind of delight candidate through all facets of the hiring process. That's essentially what your vision is of how you serve. And again, that's perfectly fine. That could be the candidate focus. So one of the things that we also got to realize too is that there might be two vision statements, one for your candidates and one for your clients. If you want to do that, you don't have to. And I'm not saying that you should do it. I'm just saying that it could be that way. Because at the end of the day, that's also fine. But for you, you can really hone in on the candidate relationships is the key part. So delight candidates through all facets of the hiring process, and then use that as a means to sell to your clients, right? Especially in that beginning part of the foundational principle or your thesis in the hiring process, and why you do all these steps you have 3 steps, right? 3 stages of the recruiting process. Your 3 stages are all built on this concept, this vision. Okay. So I love that. So just make it simple, right? You're delighting candidates through all facets of the hiring process. You could literally steal that and be okay with it. Okay.
Is that like when it becomes, because that's quite interesting in the fact of the vision statement becomes the experience. One of the things I have at the start of an engagement with a client or a candidate is, who are you? I don't trust you. So it's hard to get that sell, but that's where I take them on. Once they've been through the 3 steps, you get to the end, the client's like, this is the best experience we've ever had, because we set up our project through Notion. We set up the project plan. We give them the timeline. We give them the information. We don't just say, here's access to our ATS, or here's access to our network, or we're going to get you something quick, or it's going to be cost effective. We don't sell on that. It's the experience through the steps. So I just need to get a way of being able to present that to a client quicker,
Yeah,
or make
I
it
mean,
more
the vision doesn't always have to be something that you're even pushing out to a lot of people too. Because like I'm gonna show you what this will ultimately look like, what you might say to your clients. But for you, when you're talking to your clients, you can say, "Hey, look, this is what we're all about. This is what we believe, right? This is the vision we see for the next 30 years or 10 years or 5 years. It doesn't have to be super long either. It could be like 3 years from now, right? It has to be more than a year. Like, let's put it that way. So if you have a timeline, you're saying, hey, look, like I have this vision of delighting delighting our clients through all facets of the hiring process, or delighting our candidates through all facets of the hiring process, whatever you focus on, that's fine. You can now build your entire process and you can communicate that. Everything comes from that. Everything will come from it. It'll literally stem or have some sort of piece to it. And then you'll also realize when we go into like the mapping and blueprinting of your entire program, you'll start to see like, oh, like, does this really align with my vision? Is it necessary for my vision, or am I just adding it in because I think it's good and it's a beneficial part of it, but it's not really like a core function of what my vision's all about? So I'm not going to use that. It allows you to kill things, John Wick, if you will, those things that you might have, right? And that will help you really clarify your program. It'll help you clarify your message when you go to market. It'll clarify what you might be saying in your email or every step of your process, because it'll all come back down to that. Even like if you trickle farther and farther away from it, like it'll ultimately lead to the ultimate outcome, which is a great hire, right? So I'm going to open it up the floor to, let's go, Damien.
All right. Well, yeah, I figured we're going to go through this. I think I'm struggling with or I'm getting things mixed up as far as mission and vision and like core market and everything. So I'm just
Yeah,
gonna.
we're gonna go into that. I
Yeah,
really want
yeah.
us to
So
focus
I've
on
got
the
a few
vision.
things I've written down. So maybe you can just tell me which ones like align better with
Absolutely.
what you're going after. I was thinking about like your statement, like kind of like that Josh Brown statement yesterday of like, hey, what are you trying to accomplish? Who are you trying to help without the thing that sucks so that they can accomplish X? So this is like the long version, and then I'll just tell you what I like.
Let's go with the long version.
Yeah. So to help Twin Cities business leaders in the SMB space effectively hire top talent that won't be found on job boards without paying a high percentage of salary rates per hire so that they can compete with large businesses in their space. So that's like
So
the big.
that's actually, so that's what we're going to ultimately build,
Okay. So
right?
that's the big one.
So, so
And then I was
that's
thinking like,
so
yeah,
let's break that down. Okay.
okay.
So that's a very, very good statement. It's not bad. Okay. So and like let's get in this frame right here. Where in that statement is your vision though?
I think it's this what I keep on going back to, and this is like what when we were talking about like embedded TA, fractional TA, things like that full suite service, right? Is
Mhm.
like recruiters could add so much more value. And that's
Yeah.
like me trimming it down to 7 words, right? Like there's like it was a lot longer when I started, but
No,
I just
that's
feel like we could bring
so
so much more.
let's stay here. Let's stay here. Come
Yeah.
on. We're right here. Okay. We're in the zone. Recruiters can add so much more value. Okay. What value and for who?
For who is the like Twin Cities business leaders in the SMB space. So like I'm trying to do like a localized market approach, like so I guess that's the who is like
Okay.
hiring professional talent, right?
Cool.
So
So recruiters can add so much value. But what value? What's the value?
yeah, more value to like the talent. Okay, that's a really fair question. To summarize it, I guess I would say right now it just feels like in my experience when you're working with recruiters, it's just throwing resumes and hoping that one sticks, right? And you're not really advising them through the process. And the reason why is because it doesn't match up with the KPIs of these large organizations, right? So
It's
it's just
so much
about
easier than this, Damien. You're overthinking it. Okay.
okay.
You can add value to business operations. You can add value to a business as a whole. You can add value to sales sales and revenue. You can add whatever it might be. Like you just be much more specific is all I'm saying is like,
Mhm.
what value do you think recruiters ultimately help attain for or give to companies beyond just resumes?
Yeah. Well, they
So,
could add a lot more value at each step of the hiring process or to
okay,
attract
but
top talent.
so outside of recruit, so that's still in the recruiting process,
Okay.
right? So you're adding a
Yeah.
lot more value than recruiting, which and you're talking about process, so that's cool. Then if we're going to go into process, we're going more towards James, right? Where it's
Mhm.
like, hey, I'm delighting clients in all facets of the hiring process. That's fine. But if you're saying that, hey, I believe that recruiters are so much more valuable than just recruiting, and it matters to businesses for a reason. What's that reason?
Mm, I see. I don't have a good answer for that outside of like the hiring process part of it.
Time. Josh comes in and says time. Yeah, it can be. Yeah, it could be like, hey, you know, the recruiting process, like let's play with it. The recruiting process adds more valuable value to businesses than just recruiting. They add time. They add more time to or reduce time to the business. Like, so it's a really that's a really, I don't know. It's kind of a fluffy one, right?
Mhm.
It's not, and that's fine. But I'd be much more focused on business growth or business operations or, things like that.
Getting kind of
What
like
do you
what
think?
you're talking about in your prospecting course about like getting clients to those long-term goals, right? And like getting the talent that's going to actually bridge that gap for them. So,
Yeah. So there we
yeah.
go. So now we're going into long-term goals. So great. I like long-term goals. So creating lifelong relationships and raving fans within DevOps community, right? So like think about that. So
Mhm.
you're saying recruiter, like I believe that recruiters are more valuable than the recruiting process. We actually help get you to your long-term goals as a company, right? So and we help. So what you're going to say then is your vision is to create or to embed as a partner or let's see, let's play. I'm trying to I suck at wordsmithing, so just remember this. Like when we go through this, like it's not easy for me because my brain goes so fast. And I can't focus on a word. But ADHD. Woo. So you're basically I want to play with the term embed or like partner. You believe that recruiters are more developing partnerships that go beyond recruiting and helping SMB companies achieve their long-term vision or long-term goal, right? So it's like you're still talking about the belief, you're still talking about who you serve, which is the SMB companies. Let's take out the very specifics of of the Twin Cities. You can put it in there. Truthfully, it can be in there if you want to, but I want to get a more broad vision because this vision should be something that you could put into Twin Cities. You could put it into, LA, put it into wherever you go because it's a vision.
Yeah, it's not the niche. Right on.
It's not the niche. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Anybody else want to jump in here or ask any questions on this? Okay, Peter, let's go.
Oh, wait, sorry, real quick. So when you ask jumping in on what you're going through with Damien or jump in to
With
talk
yours.
about my own thing?
Yeah. If you have
Okay,
anything
yeah.
for Damien too, like definitely. But
No, I got my own thing if we're ready to switch.
screw you, Damien. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so reason I wanted to jump in is because I feel like I've got different pieces of this figured out, but I haven't figured out how to put them together to come up with the core focus. So, for instance, I pretty much know who I'm pretty sure I know who my target market is going to be, which is going to be.
So that's a segment. Segment is target market.
So I've got the segment. Pretty sure I know what my offering is going to be, so I've got that. Okay. But then
that's a product.
In terms of the vision, I've got like a general purpose statement and then the supporting evidence. So the purpose statement is somewhere along the lines of like it starts and ends with candidate experience.
Great.
So like a really okay.
That's it. I mean, you literally just hit it. It starts and ends with candidate experience. I believe that you start and ends with candidate experience. So now you need to add the thing that you're like what your. It's not about your how, right? Like it can be that small. It starts and ends with candidate experience. My vision is that recruiting or successful recruiting starts and ends with candidate experience. That's your vision. Done.
Cool. I guess my work here is finished.
That's it. And so what I want for all of you, it sounds, what I'm talking about 90% of the time is going to sound daunting, but it's simple. The daunting part is that you're making it simple. That's what it is. Like it's actually, you have it and we all, we convolute, we cloud, we just make things just so crazy in our brains that like, it's just, nothing comes out proper. And I'm totally guilty of it too. It's not like, you guys are unique in that way or you're failure. Like everyone does this. You have so much data, you have so much experience, you have so much you're wanting to like focus on, but it's like, dude, just be as simple as possible because when you are simple in that regard, like it's easy for people to understand. It's easy for people to jump on board, right? Like the Republican Party their vision is less government, and the Democratic Party is all about let you do what you want to do, right? Like be more liberal. Like it's as simple as that, and everything stems from that, right? More equity is essentially Democratic Party's positioning right now? More equity, right? Be fair, right? And then Republicans are like, let the free market run, right? So it's like, it can just be that simple. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but you have to have supporting documents behind it. So, everything starts with candidate experience, I think was what you said. Starts and ends with candidate experience. Why do you believe that? What in your past, what in the books, who is a big, person in that space that you're going to be focusing on that would say that with you? Who could you use to validate that point? And what's fun about this is that if you get good at this, when you get good at this, is that like, it doesn't matter what niche or target you play in, then you can go, because all this stuff is kind of universally true. Like, it's supposed to be universally true, right? That's why it has to be for everyone. Right. And so like, you can actually go and find supporting documents in your specific target market. So like, you can go find, like, if you're focusing in tech, for example, Blitz scaling and Work Rules by Laszlo Bock. Those two books talk about exactly that: candidate experience and bringing good talent and all that stuff. You can go get support for that target segment. And now those are people who are big names in the space that you're targeting. You can use as supporting documents. Oh, I have in finance, like, go find a finance guy that talks about it, because literally everyone will say this. And you're just using it to support. Cool. I want to get. What's that?
Yep. No, I'll leave it at that.
Cool. I know Megan wanted to jump in. Megan, what's up?
If we have time, I don't want to take too much time on this.
Let's talk about your vision. Let's go for it.
Okay. So my thing is, I serve businesses hosted on the cloud to help them achieve scalable and financially sustainable architecture, operational efficiency.
That's not a why.
Okay, I'm going to get into that.
Okay.
The tech industry is over bloated, and we are seeing the implosion. We over-engineered, overstaffed, and overspent, and the bills are due. And efficiency and optimization is vital for survival.
Okay.
And you need to right-size your company. But companies are doing this wrong.
I can tell you already. Let's shorten it.
Okay.
So let's start with that beginning part. What was the why?
Why?
What was that you said it in your beginning part. Start with that. Companies are bloated and okay.
Yeah, they're bloated because you over-engineered, overspent, and overstaffed, and the bills are due.
Okay, so over-engineered. So how is your vision of what you do, not your niche, what you do, how is that aligned with, how is that aligned?
What I do is bridge the gap between tech and finance.
You don't do that.
My candidates do.
Your candidates do. That's the mechanism. Yes. So let's get back to that's the product. Okay.
So yeah, that's what my candidates are doing for these companies.
Yeah, but what are you doing? What do you believe in recruiting, business, and everything else? And why is your vision there? So you could talk about, so like, you believe that the companies are bloated and overly, what you just said, right? So that bloat needs to stop in order for you to be successful, right? Like, that's essentially it, right? For a company to be successful.
And for more sustainable hiring practices, and with hiring the right people, which are the candidates that I'm proposing to them, these candidates will help them have sustainably and financially, like, they'll have sustainable, scalable, and financially sustainable architecture in their environments.
Yep.
That help them.
So again, we're getting really, you're getting bloated in your wording. You're over explaining what's going on. It's just your vision. So you believe that tech companies that want to have successful, essentially what you're saying is you believe that companies that want to have successful launches of their technical products and be successful in the future need to reduce bloat, is essentially what you're saying. In their tech, like they need to reduce the cost of doing business, or they need to reduce the tech overload or tech bloat, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you believe, right? So now let's create a vision around that. So your goal, or your not goal, your vision is to create what? To delight, to solve the problem of, what is it your vision is in 2 to 3 words, or 3 to 7 words, or as short as possible, without getting into the bloat of the rest of it. That you're talking about the mechanism, which is your candidate, not necessarily your vision of your company.
Okay, now I'm just confused.
So, okay. So it's, again, let's make it really simple. So you're in a situation where you're talking about the mechanism, which is my candidates solve this problem, right? But, and you as a recruiter are focusing on hiring those types of candidates, right? So that's, again, what you do as far as like what your mechanism is, right? But what you believe, or your vision of your company and the vision of who you serve, is that you're solving the problem of technical bloat for software teams, period.
Okay.
Do you see how simple we can get, guys? Like, is that resonating with you on the vision part? Like, it doesn't have to be complex. It can be as simple. And the other thing is, like, it's universal. Hey, we're solving the problem of technical bloat and overspend in software teams. Now, how you do it is through, or the thing that does it, the solution is your candidates, right? So you're going to be very candidate focused in your program, right? Where, as opposed to James, is going to be very program focused in his program, is process focused in his program, and candidate experience focused in his program. Are we starting to see the difference? Right? And do you see how you can now differentiate in comparison to everybody who's like, oh, I just place everybody. I place this guy. I place that guy, you know? So that's your vision. And I'm so glad we're doing this, because like I'm this is the baseline for everything, right? Cool. Let's get back to it. All right, mission. So in order to accomplish that, I must do what? Do something great, right? So that's your mission. So we're going to set our number one target goal, and it has to be a time frame specific. It has to excite people, simple to understand. It has to be clear and transparent. It has to align with your core focus. So now, Megan, coming back to you real quick, you're talking about your candidates, right? So your number one target goal would be to place 100 plus, candidates or dev rec ops, or whatever. I forget what your specific focus is, but is it biz ops? What is it? Sorry, FinOps. FinOps. So fin rec ops or X ops or whatever it is, right? You're going to place, you place the highest in demand FinOps people across the country, whatever, right? So, that's now your target. That's your number one target goal over the next 3 to 5 years, right? Your 3 to 5 year vision, or your mission, not vision. 3 to 5 year mission is to place that many people, or is to place all the best, people. And then ultimately you'll have your 1 year plan. Have like a big time frame, which is your 3 to 5 year mission, your goal, whatever it is, and it should be pretty big. It should be grand, right? And then ultimately you have your 1 year plan that is going to be a lot smaller. It's going to be narrowing in. And what you're going to see we do in this entire program, and everything you're going to do with your clients, everything is going to be all about expanding and contracting. Expanding and contracting. Hey, like, you need to see this big picture. this ultimate goal, this big thing that you want to get to. But in order to get to that big thing, we need to really narrow in here, right? You're going to do this constantly in your sales process and in your marketing, right? We talk about, and just jumping ahead here, we talk about the 5 stages of awareness: unaware to problem aware to solution aware to product aware to most aware, or product aware to most aware, you aware, right? So they're now signed up with you. That's essentially expansion and contraction. You're unaware of this problem that you have. So I'm going to talk in a very broad term, and then I'm going to narrow. It's a funnel. And then I'm going to expand out. Oh, I don't really understand that. Well, let me expand out again, right? So you got to keep doing that. So your mission is now the next part of that, which is more of it's just bringing into a narrower focus, which is your three-year mission or 1-year plan. So how many of you have a mission statement ready to go right now? Anybody? What do you think your mission statement is going to be here? What could your mission statement be? Let's start with that.
Can I take a stab at it?
Yeah, let's play it.
So my vision my vision is helping revenue leaders implement new and effective strategies.
For what?
And then
For what?
for what, as in like, what is
You're
the
helping
goal of
revenue
that?
leaders implement more effective strategies for what?
Essentially and I don't want to repeat a word I already used, but to increase revenue.
Yeah, growth.
For growth, yeah.
Right. You can go to a broader term there. That's perfectly fine. So you're talking about revenue leaders, effective strategy. Okay. I'm worried that vision statement, I like it. It's not bad. You can workshop it a little bit though. I think the problem with the vision statement is that it doesn't tie into what it kind of misconstrues what you do. Right. It might, I mean, it a little bit. I think it's not really aligned with what if I hear let's just open it up to the poll. You guys hear that? What do you guys hear when you hear I help revenue leaders find better strategies for growth? What do you what is the first thing you think of? Just write it in like the text there. Sales consulting, yeah. Like that's exactly what I think. Right? Selling, yeah. So like that's fine, but it's just like the first thing I think of is it's not really clear about, like, I think sales consulting immediately. Again, it's not terrible. Let's go back to it, but let's get into your mission.
Okay, so the mission was or is to help clients generate an additional $1 billion in revenue by 2027.
Interesting. I like it. I like it actually. Okay.
Can I walk you through the thought process?
Yeah. No,
from vision and mission.
I think I see where you're coming from. Now I get the vision and mission. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Honestly, I'm pretty impressed right now, Isaiah. Like that's not bad. Yeah, I'm going. Let's walk through the process so everybody else can kind of get along with it. Like, because I think I see where you're.
My thought process is that every industry goes in trends or waves or fads as far as how they go about their sales and marketing, which is what I recruit is sales and marketing leaders. One of the industries I work in is e-commerce. In 2013, e-commerce leaders knew, hey, if I spend $1 on Facebook ads, I'm going to generate $5 in revenue. That's no longer the case.
Mm-hmm.
So my vision is to help revenue leaders implement new and effective strategies, meaning that in e-commerce, hey, you can no longer spend $1 on Facebook and generate $5 in revenue. Their ads have gone up, customer acquisition costs have gone up. So that's just not the case anymore. So the vision leads to, that those new and effective strategies will help you generate an additional $1 billion in revenue. Not necessarily just one client, but let's just say, for lack of better terms, a portfolio of clients.
Okay. Have you done this before?
Done what?
Have you seen this effectively work in either a business that you consulted or worked with, or that that you can reference in some way?
I can give you an example, and if you can give me a yes or no, or if someone else can give me a yes or no.
Yeah.
One of my clients sold primarily direct to consumer on their website.
Uh-huh.
Part of their strategy is to go omni-channel and start breaking into retail. So I recruited a director of club retail for them, so Costco, BJ's, etc., to help increase or to help them get that omni-channel strategy in place.
Yep.
That person hasn't been there a full year yet, but if I had to guess, by the time they're fully rolled out in Costco and in BJ's, etc., their revenue will have gone up from when they were just direct to consumer.
Good. Okay. So what we want to make sure of then is, how that aligns with your messaging, because we don't want to, I mean, it's a mission, right? So you can say that's your mission. That's totally fine. But when we go to our program and our product, just make sure that like we're not saying that companies are going to get to that unless you've done that before, right? So you can say like, I want my mission is to help a company get to. You can say, my goal is to actually, or my mission is to help companies help generate over $1 billion of business for the companies I serve. That could be something, right? Like,
Okay.
But if you want to even say like $1 billion, help companies get to $1 billion, that's perfectly fine too. I'm okay with that. I don't have no issue there. And the mechanism is through your talent pools, right? So
Right.
I love it. I think it's great. Does everybody see kind of how that works? Because now Isaiah is gonna like, and it's actually it's a very appropriate situation here, because Isaiah isn't necessarily the most experienced recruiter here, so he's not gonna say, "Oh, I have this cutting edge process that essentially gets you to where you want to be a fractional recruiter for you," right? So instead, he's really focusing on MVP, and that's still fine, and he can still productize here. Does that make sense? Like, so he didn't have to like be a fractional person to do it. He doesn't even have to sell anything that he's not skilled at. He doesn't have to sell a course on how to get Spotify to do this thing or he doesn't have to sell any of that. He could just say, hey, like, this is what I've seen. Here's the checklist of all the companies that I've worked with that this is what they do. He could even sell someone else's product for that, right? He can even go partner with somebody and be like, hey, I partnered with Cole Gordon or whoever to do this, and this is what they do. You should jump into their program and then get a commission off of it, right? Because at least it sets up the framework and he's adding more value regardless of the situation. So I'm going to move on. I love it. Yeah, exactly. I think Josh, you're right. I think the response rate with that will fucking get, and Josh, you're hitting it. Yes. And we're going to get into that in currency. So that's exactly it. Okay, moving on. Core values. This is the easy one. What you're committed to, how you'll act, what are your words. I love, like, what are your words? For whatever reason, I'm a big, if you guys know the reference, it's Game of Thrones. What are your words? House of Stock, whatever, like never forget, right? So that's your core values, right? So those are the core values of your business and who you are, right? And at the end of the day, it's just a promise. It's the promises that you're bringing to the table. It's the thing that like is the embodiment of what you do, right? You never deviate from your core promises, right? Your core values. So examples can be perfection is your goal, excellence is our standard. Data will drive decisions, transparency in work, own your actions, right? Those are your core values, right? You only really need 3 to 5 of these, so don't overthink it, but just think about what you do and why, like what you promise, right? What are your words? What are your foundational pieces, right? Of what can people expect to get from you when working with you? It's really simple. So, and then there's aspirational values, things that you want to get to, right? I only work with companies that align with, right? That could be a core value of yours. Or it could be an aspirational core value, but at the end of the day, Isaiah, you're just starting off, you probably won't get companies that you just align with right now. You probably have to kiss some frogs, right? And that's okay, because you got to make some money, man. You got to go win. But at the end of the day, that's your aspirational value. You work with experts in the field. Again, if for me, when we started off with recruiting with Dynamite, I was looking at influencers or like not influencers, but like people who were in the education space and focused on specific things. And I can't get to Josh Braun, right? When I first started, recruiting, he'd be like, "Who are you? What are you doing?" Now, Josh Braun and I have an email conversation. Like we are in an email relationship because him and I now can communicate. It took a while, but at the end of the day, getting him was a lot harder than say getting Donnie Gupton under my background in my backup, right? So that's like essentially it, right? So Donnie, even though he's an expert in like the marketing space, I wouldn't consider he's specifically an expert in recruiting marketing. I wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, Donnie runs a fantastic multi-million-dollar agency, and like I'm ready to go use him as my leverage, right? So that's an aspirational value, right? But I got to use him currently because of where we're at, and he really focuses on my marketing. That's not a shot to Donnie. I'm just saying that, like, he's not Frank Kern, right? Who's the massive guru in the space. So that's it. I'm not gonna like bring up your core values. Like, you should have that pretty easy. I mean, if you guys have some core values that you want to listen to the chat here, like I don't want to bring them up and go into it because I want to get into currencies and make sure that we hit our timeline here. Does anybody have to go in the next 30 minutes? Just want to make sure that I'm not pushing too much time here. You guys good? Cool. Write in your core values, like write 2 or 3, or write your number one core value. Let's do that. Write your number one core value in the chat, and let's hear what everybody has to say. What's your number one promise? What is your words, if you will? No excuses, only solutions. Love it. Talent wins could be another one, right? Hey, you believe talent wins. It could be a belief, right? Talent wins the game. Turn up and deliver on what we promised. Dedicated, speed, and yep. It's speed and transparency. So speed and transparency is a core value. I love it. What can people expect from you? Great. So I'm gonna question mine. Test, don't guess. I love that. I love that. Oh, I love that. If anybody's been in my programs, they know that like Megan knows that I'm like all about the test. All about the test. Difficult conversations is what separates good from great. Yeah. Yeah. So so your core value then would be don't back away from difficult conversations. Right? So it's a promise. Like that's what they can expect. We're working with you. All right. So let's get into currency calculator. All right. This is the fun part. This is so important, guys. I cannot stress how important this is. Josh, you started to see it, right? Isaiah, you are on one of the best core values, or sorry, core currencies. Known to man, revenue. Everybody wants revenue. Everyone wants to make money, right? Best one of the best ones. Okay. So let's stay in that lane. Okay. So quick checkup. Who here has a very clear understanding of the problem they solve? Tell me in one word, what's the problem you solve? One word. In the chat. Go ahead. Use it in whatever it is. Whatever. Use 2 words. Just get it out there. I want to hear. Growth, reputation. So Megan, problem is cloud costs. Not out of control. Like it's great descriptions. I want no description, just what problem you solve. Cloud costs. Okay. We got 2 people so far. James, I know what problem. You know what problem you solve. Come on. What problem is it? All right. I'm going to keep it moving. All right. Who here knows who their prospect is? Like, who here knows what their ICP is? Write it down. Word. If you don't know, just say no. Cool. VPs of engineering. Okay. CROs, CMOs. Okay. Founders. Great. Okay. Who here knows what their product is? Write one word. What is your product? Some of you will be a specific type of candidate. Some of you, it will be your fractional service. Some of you, it will be, embedded solutions, RPO, coaching and consulting, whatever it might be. Right? Okay. Who here knows what your process is? Who can clearly define that process from A to B to C to D to E to F to G and like clearly define it? You don't just say yes or no. Okay. So we got a few yeses. All right. Great. And a couple no's. I like the no's and thank you for being honest. All right. If your process works, who here can point to a projection or a specific result that they can say with 99% clarity, if they do these things, then it will work? Or not 99. It could be like with a high likelihood of success. Who can do that? So James, ask again. You have this process. If your client goes through that process, there's a high likelihood that they're going to achieve something, right? Who can say what that achievement is in one word or less, right? With what level of certainty? There you go. Words are escaping me. What level of certainty that they'll achieve it? No. Most people don't. Okay. Plan. And then the plan is, who here has a plan to get that out to market? A genuine plan. Definitely no. Peter, not me. Great. Okay. So, because a lot of recruiters, what they'll do is they'll just be like, oh, okay, I solve this problem. I do this thing. I can help you get this candidate. I'm just going to send it out to a bunch of people as fast as possible. There's no plan. There's no plan. Even if you do MPC marketing, like you should still have a plan to go and implement. It should be like pretty easy for you to be like, oh, this is my system to do that, right? To get out to market. And this is why I say all the time, do not hire a lead generation company until you have that. Because if you don't know a consistent projection of like, if you do these things, then this is the result with clarity and like you tested it, exactly what Isaiah was talking about on the e-commerce side, you put $1 in, you get $4 out. If you can't say that with clarity on your current process, then you do not have any business hiring any sort of lead generation specialist, because they're not going to run your plan. They're going to sell on their plan, and they're going to basically use 10,000 emails a day to spam your people. Okay. And that's why currency is so important. It starts with this perfect offer, right? And so what is a perfect offer? Well, it's composed of really, 8 things. It's singular in nature, meaning your product, process, or whatever has a clear, measurable outcome. That's your currency. You get more of this and less of that. So the best sales script that's ever been written is literally that. Get more this with less that. Get more time with your family with less headaches. Get more candidates with less bloat, right? So it's all about those things, right? Get more, do less, right? That's what people want. The better you get at that singular focus, the better your messaging becomes, better your offer becomes. It's sequential, which I'm talking about. You do a plan, you have this process this is the system that we put into place. It shows the customer a true path from getting where they are to where they want to be and reducing the friction to get there, right? We talked about that. If you did my precision prospecting course, it was that gap selling, right? Your candidate, you're not the solution, your candidate is, right? Because you're selling them not on like, oh, I've got this great hiring process. No, if you're MPC marketing, like you're selling the candidate. Tell them exactly how this candidate's going to get them from where they are to where they want to be with the least amount of friction, with the least amount of effort, with the least amount of time, right? It's essentially what marketing is. It's what gap selling is, right? But you got to show that in a process, right? Show that in our situation where we're selling our platform or selling our program or selling our recruiting service. You know, it's hey, like I've got these things we do to get you from here to there. You productize. You know, it must be visual, physical, and never intangible, and never intangible. The product should convey something you can touch and feel. Like, obviously, with a service, you can't touch and feel it, but they should be able to look at it and go, I get what you do. I understand. I understand why this process is important. It's formulated. There's a unique mechanism in your process. This is what we were talking about yesterday. Everything has to have a unique mechanism. If you do it right, like that's the differentiator, right? Now, here's the deal. All of you probably have a unique mechanism already, right? Already. And that's your experience and the things that you currently are doing. And whether you know it or not, you don't have to go find unique mechanisms. Like you don't have to go create them if you don't, like if that's like right now, our core focus is to get an MVP out based on what you're currently doing, not what you're gonna do or what you want to do. Let's just focus on what you do, and we'll identify your unique mechanisms. And so some of those unique mechanisms might be a messaging matrix or a template or something, right? Right? But it's a formulated system that they can get from anyone. They can't get from anyone but you. Like that's what a unique mechanism is, right? So is it popular? We aren't looking at, like, again, we're not trying to invent new categories. Like that's a big part of like where people get wrong in this productization piece. They're trying to invent a new category of recruiting. Like don't do that. You don't want to be first to market on anything, like honestly, unless you have the backing of a lot of funding. You want to focus on what people are already doing and just better it. So that's why fractional is coming out and being so like game changing right now versus when it came out 3 or 4 years ago, fractional wasn't as big of a idea, right? It wasn't as big of a platform because nobody knew what it was. So if you were jumping in by yourself trying to do fractional back then, you would fail miserably because you'd be fighting this massive uphill battle. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. Focus on what is already being done and that's popular, already getting traction, and then double down on it. Okay. Competitive. Right? So obviously look for competitors. That's kind of going into that piece there. It's centralized. The product must be at the heart of all of your sales. And I'm going to show you what that means at the end of this, right? So when you do a true roadmap and you create a great product or program, it's going to be the center of literally everything. And I'll show you what that looks like. It's got to be essential, right? So we'll talk about this as well in a little bit, but it's not like the steps in your process, the steps in your program, your entire program as a whole needs to be something that it's not it'd be nice to have. It has to be like, no, you need this, right? In order for you to survive or in order for you to hire the right person. Okay. That's what a perfect offer is. So I'm not going to ask this question, but a lot of people think about what their niche is and they say, oh, the clients, the role, the industry, the candidate, location, the fill principle. That's not your niche. You may work in those areas, in those segments, but those segments are not your niche. And here's the greatest myth in recruiting is that the riches are in the niches. We all heard this, right? And there's a simple truth in that, absolutely. But I think they used it incorrectly. We'll get into why that's a problem, but that's a very customer centric, again, going back into the Phil principle, right? Role, client, industry, location. And the problem with that is that it's low scale, low profits, and high risk, right? So you're one person trying to solve all these problems, right? I've got you, or I'm selling to all these problems here, and I'm just like, coming in and being an agency, and I'm gonna do it all for you, right? And I gotta be all these things for you. I recruit. That's a very big problem. I'm talent acquisition fractional, whatever, like big problem. Like, what are you solving, right? And what happens is it's very hard to find a very specific customer, especially when you say like, hey, like I do this type of recruiting for specifically fintech companies, exactly what was happening right now in the market. I work only with fintech companies, and I help them place the best fintech engineers and payment engineers in the business, right? And so everybody was looking for fintech companies that were getting funding and all this stuff. And it's just like, oh, like once that died, where are they now? They're struggling, right? Josh, I mean, not trying to point you out, but like, you've been struggling right now in a bit of the client acquisition side, because like at the end of the day, you were very much focused on Epic's hospital people, right? So it's you highly niche down, and it worked for a little while, and you got this like, but at the end of the day, it's like, okay, what other problems can I solve, right? And that's kind of the question is like, well, what other things can I do? And the reality is you could, if you have a good process and you have a belief in what you can actually do, you can work in any market. You don't have to be just in that, but you can have the function of, oh, like I actually help, healthcare organizations optimize their tech overload, or optimize their tech infrastructure, or whatever it might be, right? So now that doesn't necessarily have to be Epics. It could be IT. It could be an analyst. It could be help desk. It could be all these different things. And it doesn't also have to be healthcare, like specific healthcare units. It could also be, small mom and pop physicians that might, be able to, that might need some help in some way. Now, obviously, we don't want to work with mom and pops, but you know what I'm saying? Like you could go into other health organizations, you could go into fitness companies, because you understand what their needs are when it comes to employer record, or their customer records, or whatever it might be. Like, so you're not focusing on the niche of the person and the specific target or segment to identify what you do. You're focusing on a bigger whole problem, right? Megan, you're talking about or FinOps and ExoOps or whatever it is. You're not just like, your path to reducing bloat doesn't just fall into FinOps for software engineering companies. It can fall into FinOps for a manufacturing company, for example. And so if you understand that the problem and the ultimate goal is what you're actually selling to, this is your niche, then you now have more customers to actually solve that problem for. And you're never in a situation where, oh man, I don't know what I'm going to do. Your marketing now has a broader perspective, because people will jump in that you don't necessarily have, like you never thought that would actually use you. And I'll give you a prime actual example. Stuart Mitchell from Hampton North mainly focused on security CISO professionals for the tech industry, because that was where he mainly focused on. The tech industry just died last year, and he still made over $2 million last year. I think he did $2 or $3 million. And only really him and I think one other person were doing business development. And he had to bring on all brand new clients. That was all new clients, or fairly new clients, I should say. And what did he have to do? Did he switch from CISOs or security issues or cybersecurity? No, he stayed in cybersecurity. and he shifted the focus to a different segment and said, okay, I solve security for SMB companies that have this risk or that are at high risk. Now it's not just fintech companies. It's not just SaaS companies. He's now working with insurance providers. He's now working with healthcare professionals, right? So it literally allowed him to just jump into a different industry and refocus that messaging onto them. He also works with DoD now. He didn't want to ever do government contracts. He was like, I didn't really want to do that, but now that's where the business is, right? So that's the reality. When you do this right, you can have higher scale, higher profitability, and more control. So this is why we all talk, like when you hear me and Stu and Mike Anderson and Ruby and all these 7-figure billers talk about fuck the niche. It's like people just overly focused on like a specific target, and they made their whole identity around that. And it's not that. It's you're actually solving a different problem. And so you become currency centric. It becomes a currency centric model. Okay. So what is a currency? Currency is a specific unit of value for another of equal or greater value. And so when I say when you can sell something, you're going to hear me mix this up a little bit. I'm going to try and say trade more. But when you're selling or trading something, you're trading for time, money, or attention. And people do not buy things or trade their time, their money, or their attention for things that are less valuable than those things. Like, who wants to if you know a car's worth $10,000 and you can go buy it on the market for 10 grand, are you going to go spend $20,000 for that car because for whatever reason you're going to double the price? No, it's the same exact car, same exact thing. Like, I'm going to go find the cheapest thing, right? On another perspective is like, if that $10,000 car, and obviously no car right now is $10,000, but if you take that $10,000 car and you're not going to get $10,000 worth of value from it, like if it's going to break down tomorrow, you're not going to buy it, right? It's just not going to make sense, right? So like you need to have enough value that you're asking for in order for you to purchase it. You know, you obviously perceive that it's either equal or greater value. So value is greater than cost. That's essentially it. And that's how you do frictionless selling. So when you have frictionless selling, when you're talking to people and Megan, you know Christina, right? Christina and I had this conversation about what we were talking about, like the support we're going to give, all this stuff. And, you know, I'm like, okay. She's like, well, what's the cost? It's like, well, here's the cost. And, you know, at the end of it, like, you know, if you pay up front, it can be, you know, X amount. And she goes, that's it? I go, that's the exact feeling that everyone should have when you tell them your entire program and what you're going to do for them. They should be like, oh, that's it. That's all it costs. Because in their perspective, it's a discount. But in your perspective, it's like, no, that's not a discount. That's going to make me $40,000, right? So if you're not providing more than $40,000 worth of value, or at least $40,000 worth of value, then and I'm not even talking about actual value. I'm talking about perceived value. That's a key point. And so what you need to also realize is that value comes to that currency part where, oh, I'm going to achieve this big old thing up here. I'm going to achieve this great, you know, amazing, you know, sales revenue goal, right? That's one part. But you also have to create the gap and sell the other part, the cost of inaction, right? So if you don't do this, the critical piece that I'm talking about, not only will you not achieve this goal, but this is what's going to end up happening to you, is that decline. And that's the ultimate total value. And most recruiters aren't selling on the total gap. They're just selling on, I've got a resume, right? I've got a resume, I can place it fast for you. But what you need to sell is like, if you don't do it this way with me in every step of your process, if you don't follow my sequential order, you're going to lose this thing. And you've probably heard me even say this or talk about it when I talk to you guys. Like, yeah, productization is key, right? It's absolutely imperative that you start productizing your program, because if you don't, you're going to fail. And then that's one broad version of it in the future, right? And you don't differentiate. So I get more narrow. If you don't differentiate, that means you don't get business. If you're not getting business, and if you keep doing it this way, you're going to fail, right? You're going to go bankrupt, right? So is everybody vibing with that? Give me a thumbs up, or like, we're good. Everybody following along? Any questions? No? Okay, good. Okay.
Well, can you, sorry, real quick. Can you repeat what you were talking about for Stu when you said like his thing?
Yeah, great question. So Stu.
So you said something like he's security for whatever.
So Stu, his currency is reducing cybersecurity risk. Is essentially what he's selling, and how he's doing it is through the talent that he's working with, right? And that cybersecurity risk is a issue not just for SaaS companies, but his target when he started was SaaS companies. That's all he focused on, because they were the ones that are getting funding. They were coming out with these great products. The money was rolling in. And when SaaS and tech took a big old dump last year, he had to pivot. He's not working with very many SaaS companies right now. He used to work with OpenAI. Let's put it that way. That's a big label that he used to work with before they became ChatGPT and OpenAI and all this other stuff. He was working with them. Like, he worked with Stripe, great company. Guess what? Stripe and OpenAI, OpenAI is still hiring, but they don't need him anymore because they've scaled out. They've got a great recruiting team. They've got enough buzz. They don't need him. So he doesn't work with them anymore, right? And that's what eventually will happen with all of your clients anyway. All of your clients will eventually not need you. So you need to be able to pivot and be able to move where your currency or your actual solution or the thing that they're trying to attain is needed. And now Stu has a bigger audience because he realized that. And it's his biggest asset right now as a business. And why he's been able to do 2 million is because 2+ million. I think he's probably got close to 3 million last year. But he's able to do that because he just said, okay, who else needs cybersecurity issue? Who else has cybersecurity issues? Who else could see understands that this is a big threat and it's imperative for them to solve this threat immediately with a good CISO? And he's like, oh, insurance companies. Oh, DoD. Oh, and then so all he did was just like, he creates content around security and why it's important for every industry or these specific industries targeting, right? That's a segment on his content. And then people just showed up and lined up. And he built a big ass audience because of it. He's got 45,000, 50,000 people who follow him. And he did that strategically. Even though he says he didn't do this, he's like, oh, I don't really have a strategy. Yeah, he did. He had a strategy. He just didn't know he had a strategy. He was doing something in sequential order to actually bring people to his page. And people loved it. They loved how honest he was, right? And that was a big part of his core values. Again, leading back to core value and core focus. Does that make sense? Stu Mitchell.
Yeah. So Will, that's clever. So rather than it being like we get the talent to give it, it's reducing the cybersecurity risk. I get that. That's clever. And then obviously panning out from that can go cross industry. So it's kind of niche in the fact you're going to have cybersecurity professionals and they're not going to be tied in like, no, I only want to work in healthcare or I only want to work in this. It's having that function. Get that. Where I'm kind of struggling with that now is like, one thing I've always struggled with is we've kind of done it the other way around because we have analysts that want to work in media and entertainment, but it's only so finite. And obviously the gaming industry has taken a huge hit this last 2 months. So I'm kind of like, how does that repivot? Because what is the solution that we're giving? Because, what is the solution that we here at 36 are giving is, yes, it's that process, but that's not even on the same level as reducing security risk, like reducing or giving you a better process. Like that's not.
Yeah. So what does an analyst do for a company?
So the analysts we work with are going to be very specific. So they would work in gaming or they would work in media. It's not transferable. So it's not at the same level.
I'm not talking about like the specifics of of the data and or the things that they're analyzing. I'm just saying, like, why would someone hire an analyst
To sell syndicated work.
to sell syndicated work? So it's a revenue perspective. They're essentially a salesperson, right?
To be fair, every role in a business is sales. They wouldn't be outright selling, be working with a salesperson. They're out there manipulating data and obviously working on specific pieces of software to then go and build syndicated work to sell to large organizations, normally FTSE 100.
Okay.
FTSE
So
500.
let's just break this down into like revenue. Okay. So it's a revenue function, right? So you're helping market research companies increase their revenue through syndicated work, right? So, and then there's things that you're going to be able to tag on to that as, like, if you have a good analyst, they're going to be able to, based on your experience, they can increase your revenue by 10 to 50% if your team is correct, per 10 to 50% per client, whatever. That's a very specific currency, right? Very specific. So you're selling on that specific currency, and there you go. That's your core currency. Now, I'm going to get into this a little bit, right? But like, that's the currency essentially, right? It's a specific result that's going to come from it. And some of you will have currencies that are more focused on hiring, right? Versus revenue. Like, and that can be a thing too, but we'll get into that. Okay. So I'm going to mute you back up, James. Does that answer your question though?
No.
All right, let me get through this part, and then we'll come into that. Okay. So, all right. So core currencies, one specific. It gives you it's supposed to gain 100% confidence. Like, a currency goal is to help gain 100% confidence that you are the person that can help them solve it, right? By you talking about the things, you're talking business to them, not hiring. You're talking, goal, like what a business objective is versus the role, right? And so when you have these better professional conversations, James, you already are doing this. You have deeper level conversations with like the company, and they understand that, oh, like, he's really tuned into what we do and what we're trying to get to. Now you're setting the stage to basically say, like, hey, like, we're the right person. That's why, James, you're so good at closing. That's why 90% of your deals, that once you get them on the phone, they work, because you're good at this currency thing, even though you don't realize you're good at it. What we want now is to actually narrow in a little bit more. Okay. So your challenges as a recruiter, and when you're doing this, and everyone's challenges are that they start off really vague. Like, everybody kind of just like, oh yeah, I've got this currency. I save time. I help companies get growth, success. It's vague. It's too vague. It doesn't really stand out. Right? It's kind of blah. Oh, I help hire people. Okay, great. Doesn't say it. So does every other recruiter. And again, it doesn't have that unique mechanism to it. Okay. And the unique mechanism is that part of, like, where we can put a metric or a time frame to it. That's a unique mechanism that kind of can go into it. Right. So the currency steps are basically, we're going to use a currency calculator. You're going to have this in your portal. Which will be in your portal probably, honestly, tomorrow, just because I've got so much I need to add to it. But I'll have at least I'll send out the currency calendar or calculator PDF, and I'll send out the slides for you, so you can start, and then you're going to input it into your portal. So just know that the portal's coming. You're going to use data to choose one core currency. Okay. The core currency of your entire program, or the core currency that your clients are trying to attain. Isaiah, you already got it. It's revenue, right? But we got to get more specific on revenue. What specific type of revenue, right? Let's get there, right? $1 billion in revenue, pretty big goal. It's a little audacious, right? And you're not going to get to $1 billion in revenue in 30 days or 90 days or 100 days or even a year, right? You're going to get to $1 billion in revenue in maybe, 4 or 5 years, 6 years, right? It's going to take a while. So what we want to do is be more specific. Like, you're going to increase revenue by 20% in 90 days by hiring the right team, right? So that would be an example. Keep currency, and you're going to keep your currency calculator handy because it's going to go into literally everything we do. Your content's going to have currency in it. Like I need, like why I say that you guys had to be in this call is because it's so important. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like you'll be like, you'll pay attention to marketing stuff, and then like you'll see a commercial on the Super Bowl, and you'll be like, oh, I know what they're selling. Like they're selling like health, or they're selling wealth. They're selling relationships, right? And so those are essentially it. So why I say you're going to have your currency calculator handy is because your big problem you're solving, that big revenue problem, that big security issue and Stu stuff, whatever it might be, actually has 9 or X amount of smaller problems in between to get there. And that's the currency, or like you could call them problems. I don't really like the word problems because it's not really a great word to describe currency. It can be a problem, but it's really a goal or an aspiration, an ideal outcome that is the currency, right? It's the ideal outcome of getting to this point, and I'm exchanging my time, money, and attention because I want to get there. You guys are all exchange time, money, and attention with me because you want to get better at sales and revenue, and ultimately that's the revenue goal, right? You guys all need more revenue. We want to get more revenue for you, right? Multiple avatars. So core currency will have your currencies will have multiple avatars. Like it goes back to that stage here, right? If you sell it right, you're going to have a bunch of avatars. There's going to be a bunch of people that can focus on it, and that's essentially your segmentation, right? But you're going to have a primary avatar to start off with, right? Like we want to look at a very core segment, and that's essentially the niching that most people talk about. It's not really niching because that's not your niche. It's just the segment that you're focusing on, and you're going to go a mile deep with that segment, right? First, and you're going to do everything you possibly can to get that segment on board, and then guess what? You can now move to the next segment, right? And then you're going to have secondary currencies, and these secondary currencies are the smaller problems, right? All right, so this is what you're going to build, right? We're going to build this with you. You and I are going to do this on a one-on-one basis. So it's not going to just be by yourself. We're going to have, I have a program that's going to help us build this really fast for you. So I know a lot of people are thinking, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, don't just trust the process, and I'll get you to the finish line. I'll get you to the golden line. I promise. Okay. So you're going to essentially build this revenue, right? Rec to revenue map. This is what ours is. This is how I was taught it. And I'm going to give you what I was taught. You're going to do this for your recruiting situation. In recruiting, it's discovery, right? This is your stages, right? And deliver or actual action, going out and sourcing, and delivery and whatever it might be. And then at the end of it, it's like closing up, right? You're closing up, negotiating, getting the person on board, and then you ultimately getting them to show up their first day and maybe checking in on them on their 90 days, right? So you're going to be building this, and ideally, you're going to have 3 stages. Every company is going to have 3 stages. You might have a 4th or a 5th, right? That's fine if you want to break it down even further. But each of those stages will have 3 steps, and we'll get into all that. I'm not going to go too deep in it, but we'll talk about it so that way people understand why they're doing it. And what you're going to sell is the currencies. Like Purpose Pulse is clarity. Currency calculator is getting specific, right? And so some of these currencies will have more broader currencies, but ultimately your big currency is revenue. So revenue for me, or margin, or market share, whichever one. So I'm going to say revenue is our core currency, 6 to 7 figures in revenue in 30 days or less. Like, so you see that I'm like really pushing a currency here. All right. So your prime currency, or currency prime, kind of like Optimus Prime, is specific, reliable, measurable. Okay. And that will equal your core currency. It has to be specific, reliable, and measurable. So one thing, reliable, at the end of the day, like there's a high likelihood that this is going to come out, and this is the measurement you get from it. Okay. That's a key part for your prime currency. Your secondary currencies can be none of those. It could be like one or two of those things, but it can't not be one of those things. And at the end of the day, we want to get more specific as possible. That's what we're going to lean on mostly, is specific. But they're ultimately steps, right, to get to the big old core currency. Like, those are the steps that we're going to do. So again, this is what it looks like. Customer centric, got a niche. I work within healthcare. I will only work with SaaS companies. I'm trying to solve big problems. That niche goes away. Can't do anything. You're solving a problem. You can move and you can pivot. Okay. All right, we're following along. Finishing up here on the last stages here, right? So I had the elephant in one bite situation, right? That's the problem with agencies, is that we're trying to solve big problems with one bite. This is what our solution is, right? We're not going to do that. It's like lighting a fire or trying to light an atom bomb. And if anybody knows the atomic structures of an atom bomb or watched Oppenheimer, you know that you can't light an atom bomb. It's not going to go off if you burn it, right? You have to detonate it, right? And there's a series of events or a series of things that you have to do to detonate it. Those are your micro problems, essentially. We're pressing this button, and this button at the same time to launch or to boom our atom bomb. It's probably not appropriate to talk about atom bombs right now when we're at the brink of nuclear war, but, you know, hey, it's my favorite, movie right now. So I figured everybody's seen it. So again, these are your buttons. This is your button. Button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4, button 5, button 6, right? You pose buttons to get to the ultimate goal. And ultimately, everything in your business comes from that. And this is the exciting part, because a lot of you are struggling with content right now. Like, oh yeah, I got to write up content. I don't know what's right. Well, if you don't know what's right, you can go back to your program and go back to your steps and talk about the problem that people are facing. And you can literally do the awareness journey on each one of these steps, because each one of these steps will be their own little product. It'll be their own little thing. It'll have their own little unique mechanism, right? At the end of it. And you have the knowledge, whether you believe it or not. Okay. And I'm going to show you how you have it when we go into our one-on-ones and stuff. But like, each one of these steps will have those things in it. And now you're going in and you're saying, okay, if I'm looking at the 5 stages of awareness, I can create content on problem aware or unaware to problem aware, and moving on, etc. Right? So we do the 5 stages of awareness for each one of these steps and talk to those currencies and why it's so important and critical for you to go through that. Right? And some of these will be what we call a hot currency, right? Can anyone guess what a hot currency is? And in fact, I'll list them off. So is a hot currency clarity? Yes or no? Just yes or Y or N. Is a hot currency getting clarity a hot currency? No. Yeah, you're right. Great. You guys get what's not a hot currency. How about productization roadmap? Is that a hot currency? No. Oh, well, some says yes. Yeah. So Josh, yeah. Okay, cool. It's a medium. I would consider it a warm currency, right? So yeah, for me, yeah, exactly. Productization for you is a hot currency. It's a warm currency. Some people would say it's hot. Some people would say it's not, right? Oh yeah, he's talking about position. He's talking about RPO. He's talking about, fractional. No, I'm not. That's not what I'm talking about. That's why I say people get it wrong, right? What about the ultimate sales script? The ultimate sales script. Damien says no. Interesting. Yes. Okay. Damien, you're not wrong. It could be not for you, right? But what if I gave you the template that got me a 50% reply rate? Right? So that's a hot currency. Like, everybody wants that. Give me that template. I want that template, right? So that's essentially what you're seeing. And that's the content that you're going to create. And so some of that will be hot, some of that will be warm, some of that will be, all that stuff. But guess what? You're talking to different avatars, people at different stages of that process that you're in, people that vibe with it. And then guess what? You can find partnerships even and other influencers who might focus on that stuff. So if your focus is on DEI and understanding not DEI, but if your focus is on understanding the core focus of a company, and like that's the first part of your part, you're going to go find consultants and influencers who talk simply just about that, and you can go borrow that network, right? That's what I did. It's how my LinkedIn grew so quickly. It's how, many of you came to me, right? Is because you saw me on someone else's podcast, right? So your video strategy will be ready. Your lead magnets will come from it. Your ebooks, everything, simpler funnels will come from this. Your outreach, everything will come from this, because you can now identify better and simpler, opportunities for people to work with. So this is what we're going to do.
Will,
Right.
real quick,
Yeah.
what is an avatar? You keep saying the only thing I know is the movie. So sorry.
Great question. ICP, avatar, Keystone client, all are the same thing. Like avatar is your persona. What you're creating a persona or an ideal customer profile. It's the filters you put into Sales Navigator or LinkedIn Recruiter to find the candidate or the client you want. Right? That's an avatar. Yeah, no problem. If anybody had problems with that. Sorry. Okay.
You just mentioned a few things about currency, and
Yeah.
maybe I'm just missing this. I think I'm sorry. You mentioned Will or Stu was risk, right? Your revenue, right? Are there any other forms of currency? Is it just
that's what we're gonna get into right now? Yeah, exactly. There's really, so essentially there's, who here has read Alex Hormozi's the $100 million offer? $100 million offer. Everybody loves it. It's my favorite right now because it's just so simple. What does he talk about as the 4 value pieces or 3 value pieces that every product should have, or that every product really focuses on? Health, wealth, finance. Health, wealth, relationships. Sorry. Every company, every product, everything those are the 3 main values that people are trying to attain, or things that they're trying to get better at. I'm trying to lose weight. I'm trying to have a better relationship with my wife. I'm, whatever, right? Every product comes from that on the consumer side. On the business side, it's revenue, margin, market share. Okay, or cost is really market share. You could say cost or profit go into margin. So those are the 3 main currencies in business. So that's what this currency calculator is for, right? You're gonna have broad currencies. Can you guys see this? Can you read it? I don't know if you guys can read it. Like, tell me if you can, if it's hard to read. You don't have to read the little words. That's not important. Just the side words on the left and the right. You're all good? And the upper echelon here. I'll describe what those things are. And you'll have this in your inbox shortly too. So the broader the currency, the more difficult it is to sell. You're essentially, when you're selling a broad currency, you're a guru. Everybody hates fucking gurus. You didn't come to me because I'm a guru. I'm not a guru. I'm not guru, at least. I'm going to help you be a better marketer that's going to actually bring in revenue for recruiters. And Alex talks about this too. The more broad you are, the lower level of like intake you can get, the less you can charge, right? He talks about like, oh, I have this sales script. Okay, cool. You're just another person that has a sales script. I have this sales script for SMB companies. Okay, great. That's fantastic. I'm more interested. I'll buy that for you from $500. Oh, no, I have this sales script specifically for SMB finance companies that are selling in the Midwest. Now it's very, very specific. And I know it works because I reached out to 1,000 people and this worked, right? It's like, cool. Now I can sell that thing for like thousands of dollars, right? The more specific you get, the better it is easier it is to sell, right? Again, that's the niche that everyone talks about, but it's really just segmentation, because your program can be moved from everything. Like, you can literally, if you're a good recruiter, you can recruit mostly in anything. You have a process and you have a belief in yourself, right? So the broader you are, the harder it is to sell. The more meaningful and measurable it is, the easier it is to sell. And this is why hiring, culture, employee satisfaction, you might be selling towards those currencies. They really hit all 3 of these. right? That's why I have it big in red, because it's what it is, but it's just a meaningful and measurable one, and use that as your core currency if you want to. But we still want to tie it to a very specific currency. I'd say we are going to increase your your pipeline of top sales or top sales people in the next 90 days. We're going to add 10 salespeople in your pipeline in 90 days, which is a lot. That are a match for your company and all that stuff. So that you can achieve, 10x revenue over the next in your yearly goals, or you can hit your yearly metrics, your KPIs, whatever it might be, right? So you're going to get more specific. So that is the important part. So if the broader you are, the more you need to tie it to a higher specific currency. Does that make sense? I just want to be sure that we're all clear on that. Yeah. Okay. So specific currencies include, on the revenue side, sales and revenue, obviously, specifically what number, 10%, 10K increase, $10,000 a month. That's MRR. Client spend, right? Like, okay, cool. Like I want to get more my clients to spend more with me, right? We talk about lifetime value here, right? I get my clients to buy, I have is $150,000 at minimum, because that's my average lifetime value of my client, right? So they're going to make X money, market share, number of clients, right? That can be a revenue piece too, but really it's a market share thing. Leads, right, is a very specific thing, right? But at the end of the day, who is going to understand leads? This is something I had to realize. I came out in the market with, get more leads. You guys don't need more leads. You need more sales. You need more customers. You need more. So I'm not going to talk to you about leads as much. I might reference that for my larger companies who understand the importance of leads. I might even reference it to my secondary, market, or my marketing to you guys again. If I was going to market, now you've got all these clients, you've got this great sales system, you've got this great product. Now we got to get you more leads, because you understand the value of the lead, right? But I won't sell you the lead first. Profits, cost, ROI, margin, meaningful and measurable. Meaningful and measurable means like, yeah, it's a mechanism that will help them get to a more specific goal, but it's not really like, it's not very specific. You could still measure it. Phone calls, for example. Oh, you're going to increase phone calls or your cold calls, or more dial-ins, right? Engagement and traffic, right? Still measurable, still meaningful, right? But it's really market share that we're talking about. Product portfolio, right? Also, the cool thing about this part is like I said, the higher culture, employee satisfaction, all that stuff is going to all really like tie into all these things. And even phone calls can tie into market share, can tie into margin, can tie into revenue, right? And so like you can always go, so that you can do this, so that you can do this, go back to your core currency, right? Or another more specific currency, right? I should say. And then one of the big things that was like an aha moment for me, and when you get really Jedi mind tricked at this, again, I'm not expecting you guys to all have this right now, but what you will realize when you start seeing this is that all these things tie together. Like if you have better revenue, that means if you have more sales revenue, that means more money to go build out a product and get more market share. You can go hire better salespeople to go tap into a new market. When you have a new market that you can go after, you can get economies of scale, which is margin, right? You can like start actually increasing like the value per deal, right? And when your business is fucking booming and you're feeling great, your health is better because you have more time to actually like go do the stuff that you actually want to do. You can go to work out, and you can actually be a healthy person. Oh, by the way, and guess what? Naturally, your wealth is gonna get better. And you know what? If you're healthy and wealthy and you got a booming business, and you're not in the day-to-day grind of everything, relationships are better because you actually can spend time with your family, or you can actually spend time trying to find that significant other. And so you'll start to see like all these things that can tie into it, and that's what you're selling to, right? So you sell into these emotional outcomes that what people want. Has anybody ever explained this to you like this? No? I know some of you guys are getting a little tired, so we're on the final stretch here. So everybody, I want everybody to move those arms a little bit. Give me a roll before we get going on this last part, because I gotta bring it home now. Promise. Okay. I'm gonna bring it home. All right. So what we're gonna do now that we understand currencies and we solve these micro problems, we're gonna actually, well, let's talk about this. Meaningful means indispensable. Sorry. Let's go back here. So what we're gonna actually do, shit, did I not put in my currency calculator? I didn't. Here. Sorry guys. I didn't put the currency calculator in here. I thought I did. This is the currency temperature gauge. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna put in the currency calculator real quick for you. I'm gonna stop sharing so you guys get the whole thing. Okay. All right. While you start to think about, I want you guys to like while I finish this up, tell me what you guys think your currencies are. Both your primary currency, one primary currency, and a secondary currency you might have. No wrong answers. Okay.
Hey, Will, quick question.
Yeah.
So when you talk about secondary currencies, so are you saying that, so we're still sticking within the framework of there's 3 potential currencies for business. And so it's like, if my primary currency is going to be revenue, then the secondary currency would still be one of the other 2 out of the 3.
It could be whatever. And like, so like, think about your first stage in your process, like the foundational stage of your process. What is a secondary currency that's essentially a secondary currency? That's you're going to sell Clarity as an example on Foundation, right? Think of your unique mechanism or like how you go to business, and whatever specific stage, like think about the stage that you're in, whether that's how you go and source, how you go and interview, specifically the how, not the result, the how you do it. And what are you delivering to them when you bring, say, a book of candidates as an example, or when you bring them, when you don't waste their time. I'm giving you that currency as a currency. Time is a currency. You could even say confidence is a currency, right? And that's a broad currency, but here's the deal: is like with confidence, you can still measure it in a way. You're not measuring it in a specific, like, 10%. You're going to say, you're going to measure it in completion. You're going to gain 100% confidence as you go to market for this candidate, right? For example. So those are kind of your secondary currencies, but the overall program of what you're delivering, the vision of what you deliver is your core currency. So that revenue, that risk mitigation, that security, like 100% confidence could be a core currency. That's fine. You can even say your hiring process, 10% efficiency in hiring, or get 10 more hires this month than you did before, or whatever it might be, right? It could be a core currency, but again, we still want to tie it to a more specific currency if we did that. But let's just focus on the core currency and maybe one secondary currency. Or another thing we can do, if you guys want to do it, is what's your core currency on your process for your clients, and what's a core currency that you would about for your candidate? So the candidate would be more health, wealth, and relationships. That's what you're selling. That's a more consumer-based thing. So what's a core currency of someone finding a new job? Like, let's think about it that way, because everybody knows what those core currencies are. And we don't have to even think about the secondary currency. Let's see. Well, let me just put this currency calculator in and I'll help you guys out. Currency gauge. Where's the currency calculator? Did I really not put it in? Shit. Okay. Where are you? Currency calculator. Boom. 22 and 23. Share. Download. Transparency. And 23. Okay. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties. I'm running way over, so I apologize. I'm going to try and keep this done and get you out in the next 20 minutes here, or 10, 15 minutes. But if you got to go, this will be recorded. So just know that. Oops. Where'd my code go? Currency calculator. Okay. Show Finder. Open that up and add in. Add image. Open. Okay. Okay. Nope, not that one. Just those two. Yeah. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Let's get back to play. Nope. That's not where I want to go. There. Here we go. So let's get back to it. Share. We're back. Okay. So let's talk about what you guys think your currencies are. All right. Product development comes to mind first. Good. Okay. Is that product development? Is that a measurable and meaningful? The combo.
I mean, I've had it measurable and meaningful before. Like if I've worked on like projects, right, and we're scaling.
How can you measure product development?
Well, it goes back to revenue, right? If it opens up like new lines, if they can increase the amount of sales, if you can increase market share by going after a new vertical.
Perfect. You're on it. Okay. So getting closer. Margin, right? Peter, margin. Yeah. Reputation is a risk situation for sure. It could also be a revenue one, right? It just depends on what angle you're coming from, right? Okay, cool. And market share, right? Ultimately, like in market share. All right, so your currency must be meaningful and measurable. So we must sell, like, I don't want to sell painkillers. We all know there's a pandemic or epidemic of that. But we're selling painkillers, not vitamins, right? So the painkiller has to be absolutely essential. Like it's like there is no choice. I need to get this pain off of me today. This headache is killing me. I'm not going to go take a vitamin C tablet, right? I'm not going to go take potassium. Some of you might, some naturalists might. But that's not what sells. You're not selling that. Okay. Another way to think about it is you're selling penicillin. You're selling penicillin, not potassium, right? You got this infection. You got this problem. I'm not gonna sell you potassium when you need to actually get this antiviral, antibacterial thing off of you, right? It has to be critical, not optional, essentially. And the key here is like, don't get creative. Like at the end of the day, like a big problem that we all have is that people get a little too creative, and they're just like overthinking it. Again, simple, super simple. If you can't get it to at least, if you can't get the measurable part right, and you don't know what measure specifically, that's fine. At least get it meaningful, and it should be able to be measured. Okay. So if you can't measure it in some way, then you don't have a actual core currency, right?
Quick question.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you talk about selling painkillers, not vitamins, so I get that analogy. What I'm not certain of is, so when somebody needs to take a painkiller, like it's very obvious to that person that they need a painkiller. Like you don't need to sell them on the fact that they are in excruciating pain and they need to pop a Vicodin, right? Now,
but they might not. imagine, okay, so back to that really quick. I just want to get the baseline on that though. When did painkillers come out? Right? When painkillers first came out, like nobody knew that there was even an option for painkillers, like Tylenol, all that stuff. Nobody knew that there was an option to have this pill that took away this pain. So that's not necessarily, it's common today. And yes, like, okay, like that's the unaware stage though, of people who don't know. And yes, you're right. Most people know that they need to get certain things. And that's kind of those aha moments that you're like, yeah, you want to get, you have a revenue issue because you're not making any money. And you think, the problem is that you need to get more salespeople in the door. But at the end of the day, you have a churn issue and your salespeople that you've just hired do not actually do the work that you need them to do. So you're still having that revenue issue. It's because you haven't lined up these things, right? So absolutely, you're right. People who already know, and they're going to be looking for that solution already, right? But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, you actually, I think, answered my question, which was, I'll leave it at that. I think you answered it for now. So
cool. So what's measurable in business? They're trying, and this is not always 100% universally true. Like don't take this as Bible or biblical message, right? Like, in businesses are usually trying to attain something. I want to gain revenue. I want to gain customers. I want to increase my income. I want to, get better profits, et cetera. Right. That's that meaningful part. And then the customer or like your candidate are usually trying to avoid something. Like most people aren't actually motivated by the positive outcomes. Like, for example, if you have like a smoking product, like you're like, oh, like you got to quit smoking. Most people aren't like, oh, I got to quit smoking. And our program actually helps you have like better lungs, right? You're going to have really nice, clean lungs after you stop smoking, right? Like people aren't necessarily lining up for that necessarily. Some people might, but where are really people going to, hey, like, if you don't stop smoking, you're going to die of cancer, an excruciating death. And at the end of the day, you want to reduce and avoid that as much as possible. Right. So that's why smoking campaigns are the way they are. They sell on, oh, you're going to die if you do this. Right. So people are more motivated by evidence, individuals are, and businesses are more motivated by attainment. Okay. Generally speaking. Now, as specific as possible, 10K per month revenue, 100% confidence. Again, that's a broad one, right? But you can have 100% confidence going to market, right? And it's still measurable, crystal clear, right? So there's still a measure, right? If it's crystal clear, right? Crystal clear vision, right? You're gaining crystal clear vision on what's happening. It's still that's still a measure. It's just it's more of a agitative way, or I guess that's the word. A descriptive way of giving a measurement. Crystal clear versus murky, right? On the customer side, you would say never again, right? You can lose the fear of rejection, right? You could be the wasted effort, right? Still measured and I use those and not numbers necessarily because I want you to see kind of the word salads that we could put together, right? It doesn't have to be a number necessarily. It just has to be descriptive of a measure, right? So this is our currency calculator. So I apologize for not having this in there. Currency calculator. So what you're going to do in this currency calculator is basically what my category was, what you thought it was. And mostly you're going to say your positions that you were trying to fill, right? For example, James might say analysts. What my category was like business analysts for market research companies, right? Or for gaming or whatever it might be. But now we're going to start developing the core currency. Again, one word is key. And it can be, we want to be specific. Just again, it doesn't have to have the measurable piece just yet, but just like think about what your entire recruiting process, who you're actually helping, your vision, your mission, all that stuff that you're building towards. Like, what is that ultimately getting to? And what's that core currency there? So Isaiah would say increased revenue, right? And it can be 2 words if it's descriptive, but again, just try and do it in 1 word, right? A example of that would be in the more consumer-based stuff on like weight loss. It would be weight loss, right? Like, oh, health. You thought, oh, fitness was what you were trying to sell, or you were trying to sell coaching and personal training, but it's really weight loss is what your core currency is, as an example. So just to give you a dynamic of what that looks like. So again, you're either increasing something. So I'm increasing revenue, I'm increasing something in a metric. I'm going to 2x, 10x, whatever, x 30% more, 10K MRR in a timeline, right? And again, it can be hiring, like, oh, you hire great salespeople, increase the number of salespeople in your pipeline in 30 days or less, right? Or you're decreasing. So decreasing issues, like I'm decreasing the cost of doing business or whatever in 10 days or less, or whatever it might be, right? And I'll show you an example of that. Let's just get this to stop moving because I hate this part of the feature. So this is an example. Senior C-suite tech salespeople is what I thought my category was. And really, it's my core currency is now increasing sales, right? And you're increasing revenue, your goal attainment, goal attainment is kind of like one of those kind of vague ones, kind of hard to measure. Like, what does that mean? Like, well, 100% each quarter, right? Qualified opportunities, 10x in 90 days. Close opportunities, 20%, close 1, right? Top line revenue, 10% more. Again, you're going to use the stuff that you like, that you know. Again, you don't have to have this right now. Like, don't think about like, oh, I have to have like my measure today. But I want you to start thinking about it, because like when we go and do our research, our case studies, and I look back and like we might reach out to a couple people, or we can get some stuff from, Amazon or a book or Google searching. When we do our recon, we might be able to find some of this measurable pieces. All I want is for you to at least have the measurable and specific part. And you're decreasing, right? So decrease ramp time, decrease micromanagement, inconsistent messaging, training and expenses, anxiety and stress, high pressure selling, customer churn, tech spend, right? Those are for Megan, it's cloud spend, right? Cut it by 50% in 3 months, right? So again, meaningful means it's indispensable. If meaningful, an indispensable thing, you are now recession proof. If it's measurable, it has a valuable ROI. So people can understand, as soon as I do this thing, I'm going to get this return. And that return doesn't always have to be money. It can be clarity. It can be, going back to these things, it can be training expenses. It can be anxiety and stress. Again, hard to measure, right? High pressure selling, right? Hard to measure, right? So you can have that valuable ROI, which is that currency. So now, when we think about the roles that we're working in, like if you're specific about positions you actually work in, these are where they lie. Human resources is a margin role, right? It's a profit role. You're trying to reduce risk. Finance can be revenue and margin, because you might have a finance team that's all about acquisition, or they're planning to make sure to cut costs, right? It could even be a market share. I can argue that. Accounting, pure margin profit. There's no revenue fund in accounting. Sales, and you'll hear this too, because like some of you have candidates that are like, I want a company that looks at my position as a genuine revenue maker, right? So talent acquisition, right? When they say that, then you got to question it. Like, what do you mean that it's a revenue maker? Like, well, because if we have a great talent acquisition team, we have the best, people, and the people ultimately lead in revenue. Well, are you working in go-to-market? Are you working in finance? Are you working in sales and marketing? Are you working in product development? Are you working in customer service? No, I work in operational people. Then you're not a revenue maker. You are a profit and margin issue, right? So like that's kind of like, and you'll see like most things are avoidance of more avoidance of cost or an increasing of profit, right? Very few things are actually market share because it's not really about actually going out and getting new stuff. And a lot, and like the second place is revenue, but this is the highest impact stuff because everybody wants more revenue. I don't know a single company that doesn't want more revenue, period. So that's today's lesson, guys. You're going to have these slides. What you guys are going to do as your homework is start building out your currency. Go to currency calculator. You're going to look at it and say, okay, what am I solving specifically for my core? We're not going to go secondary currencies, just your core program. Who are you solving it for? What are they going to get? Is it measurable? And is there a timeline that you can actually produce for it? Is like, can you say it in 90 days that you'll get this thing, or a year? And if you can make, like, some of these currencies that you're going to talk about will be big currencies, like Isaiah's $1 billion in revenue, right? Let's break that down and like try and get closer to a timeline that's like tangible for people. Like if I told you, get $600,000 a year in revenue, like, you know, there's some people who will say 7-figure billers and like all that stuff. Yeah. But like, you know, most of you just want to bill for tomorrow. Like most of you just want to get past this quarter. Right. So I'm not going to talk about these big ones because like, I want to be as measurable as possible so it can people can act now. They need to act now to get this thing. Okay. And then you're
Well,
going
I
to
have
use
a quick question for
Yeah,
you.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. So let's say my currency is revenue and my promise is to increase revenue by 10% in 30 days. How am I proving that I have done that in the past without literally showing a previous client's financials? Or
You're not. You're showing your candidates do it because you're more of an
Got it.
NPC
Okay.
marketer, right?
Got it. Yes.
So you're more of you're not selling the solution of being a, like, I mean, you are, but you're not selling fractional work for sales development teams. You're selling, hey, I've got great candidates who are going to fucking increase your profits by 10% in the next 90 days.
Perfect.
Got it. And to answer James' question, yeah, well, we have the guy, like all this, you have everything in the email I'm going to send out. I'm going to put it in actually into Kajabi first. So that way you guys can have immediate access to it. And you have all these slides, the whole entire slide deck. And it has all this stuff in there. So you're going to then look at it. And what I want you to do is like figure out your currency. So I want you to go to currency calculator, figure out your currency. If you want to even start from the beginning, okay, I place sales and accounting marketing or sales and marketing people. Okay. Start there. Okay. It's a revenue and market share situation. You can go back and go, okay, well, what currency, what specific results are those candidates bringing us? Like exactly what you said, they're increasing profit, and just like write those things down, like do the currency calculator. And what we're going to do is like find the thing that's the most measurable and the most impactful. And we're going to use that, right? In our messaging, right? And when you look at, you know, this, you're going to assess like, okay, is it specific enough? Is it meaningful, broad, right? And this isn't everything, by the way. This isn't like, there's tons of stuff. So if on Tuesday, when we have our office hours, you guys can ask about this, right? Like, hey, like I'm doing this and this is a problem I'm having, like whatever it is. And like, we can talk about it. Okay. So, if you do it this weekend and can get it done, great. If you can't, or if you still have questions on Tuesday, like we can bring that up. But does anybody have questions right now? Is this clear?
What I keep on going back to is like you have that list of different role, like IT addresses this, you know, sales addresses this, right? Product development addresses this. For this to be successful from a currency template, it sounds like you want us to narrow in on, you know, one vertical.
I'm not saying, not necessarily narrow in on one vertical. For you, for example, Damien, if you're talking about fractional recruiting for the the Twin Cities.
SMB Twin City space. Let's just say
Okay.
that. I mean, I figured I'd start with like advanced manufacturing or critical infrastructure, which are both like big markets here.
Okay. So, what was your vision statement?
We were workshopping that. I'm gonna need to go back through it. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you write it down?
Yeah. It's in my notes. I mean, yeah, we started with like the recruitment could be like there's so much more value that recruitment could add, and then you workshop a few lines that I need to like work through.
Exactly. So what, and that was my whole point, is what value? It doesn't necessarily, like, so the good fractional recruiters right now are fractional recruiting for specific departments, not necessarily whole companies. If they do whole companies, that's one thing, but then they're also selling on something like, they're selling on, you don't have a true recruiting program and candidate experience, so you're not getting the revenue, market share, or you're literally hitting across all those things. So your core currency would be hiring if you wanted to do it very broadly. Now, or custom candidate experience, or whatever your philosophy is on how you approach the business, or how you approach recruiting, and what are the key points. And this is where it's a little hard to do for when you're broad. Like that's why I said it's like the harder it gets harder. It's more challenging when you're in this, when you play in this arena. It's very difficult, right? But the key to it though is then if you're gonna say hiring, right? Culture, employment satisfaction. If we're gonna go after a very specific market, say what was the market you said that you wanted to go after?
Advanced manufacturing or critical infrastructure type space.
Advanced manufacturing, critical infrastructure. So you're hiring for advanced infrastructure or whatever, manufacturing, critical infrastructure. What positions would you be hiring for?
Electrical engineers, product development engineers, manufacturing engineers, things like that.
So market share, revenue, questions, right? Or even margin, right? Like you're gonna, again, it's really hitting on across all those. So like your messaging would be like, I created this really great program so you can take, you can have a 30% decrease in hiring lag, right? That could be a more specific one, but so that you can achieve your sales and revenue goals. That might be the first thing that you're going to focus on. And that's the first target you're going to focus on. But guess what? You can now do that so that you can increase market share. And that might be another segment that you target, right? Or so that you can decrease or increase your profits and ROI and cost per hire, right? So, or decrease your cost per hire. So like you would use that, so that part, that's going to be in our offer architecture messaging, which is you're going to get that lesson over the week, and that'll be in your piece. That's that messaging matrix piece.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It does. I've got some work to do on all this. So,
and don't worry, again, I'm here with you guys. It's like we're doing our Tuesday office hour. You're gonna have more questions when you get into this. You're gonna play around with this idea. You're gonna like be like playing around with your purpose pulse again and like kind of figuring out all that. And then on Tuesday we'll go back to it and we'll be like, hey, what's the problems? What's the situations? Like, what are you winning on? What are you losing on? And we'll talk about it. And then on Saturday next week, we'll go into the next lesson. But you guys can book me, so make sure you book me for their one-on-one sessions this month. If you want to do our one-on-one session after all this, that's fine. If you want to book it before, or if you're like, oh, this is a little difficult, like we can do it then too. I don't really care. It's up to you guys. Just try and only book me once a month. If you need to do another booking, or if you have questions, use the community, talk to each other. I want you to pair, my goal is to get you paired up at the end of this. Like, so this is why I said this is the only lesson, like intensive one that we're going to do live. All the rest of the lessons are going to be video, because I want you to do that and then come to Saturday and I can do breakout sessions with you. So you guys can workshop with each other, talk about it, and we can come back to this and go, okay, well, what did you guys discover about each other's, ICP or your avatar or Keystone clients? What did you guys, what was the message that you guys ended up creating? And you guys are piggybacking off of each other and working with each other to build that out. And then we have a better group think that actually gets you to that better goal. You hear different perspectives. that make sense? Is this starting to excite a lot of you now? Is it starting to click? I mean, at least the clicking of like the currency part. Like, do you see how powerful currencies can be if you actually sell it right? Like, nobody wants to buy. Like, there's this common misconception that, oh, you don't sell, what is it? Like, you don't sell the drill, you sell the hole. Nobody wants to buy a fucking hole, you know? Like, yeah, that's a part of it. It's better than selling the drill, how easy it was to drill the hole. But really, it's like, if you are really actually selling the hole, you're actually selling, hey, like your kids can go play on their playground tomorrow, right? You're selling that. It's like, oh, your kids playing on the playground because you built that playground by hand, and it's because you had the best drill possible. It took out like all this problems of like using a shitty drill and going back to Home Depot and all that stuff, right? Like in commercials, you'll see it. Like watch commercials after you've done this lesson. Rewatch this lesson too if you want to. But like if you go back to if you look at all the commercials that are out there, like they literally talk about like the first thing that somebody's doing is like, oh, they're building out the project. They're literally laying down the foundation. That, oh, I got to go to Home Depot. Doom, 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 doom. Then you hear the Home Depot sound, right? And it's like, oh, this is a Home Depot commercial. He's going to Home Depot to go buy that shit because he's about to go build a project for his kid, right? And it's like,
right, they're selling the people walking along the beach, and it's really for an antidepressant, and you had
exactly,
no idea.
yeah, exactly. There you go.
I got you.
You start to see it, like you'll see it everywhere, and you're like, oh, like that's what they're selling. They're selling that dream outcome of like what it means to buy this product and take it, what it means to work with you, what it means, and like the vision you have for those companies that vibe with you, and it'll align you better, and everything's gonna come from it, right? Because now you align better with your clients. All your messaging aligns better with your clients. Everything that your observations, right? It becomes easier to identify observations of like, oh, like I see this client just hired 5 people on their sales team, right? But I'm looking at their program or their last, 10 people that were there, they left in 30 days or less. They have a churn issue. I wonder, let me go look at the job description. And it's like, oh, well, like you can see the job description. You make an observation on like, oh, this job description is garbage. And you look at like their Glassdoor and go, oh, shit, that Glassdoor reviews are pretty bad. Like, and you start seeing like there's a problem with how they train and all this other stuff. So you go, hey, look, so you just hired 10 people. You've still got 5 other roles up. How are you approaching the training and development situation? If that's your belief system, right? Like training and development is a key, or onboarding is a key part to what makes a successful hire, right? So you can now diagnose a lot better and come at them a little bit better of a way and actually start conversations a little easier. Does that make sense? You guys following that? Cool. Yeah, jump in the community box. If you guys have any problems, again, like I said, and know this is daunting, keep it simple. Keep it simple. Just be as simple as possible. And I'm here to help you out. I'll be in the community box every day. Bring it up in the chatter because I want everybody to talk about it and feel about it. And your challenge for the community this week is to write your core focus or vision statement, your mission, and some of your core values. Like I want you to share that with the community. And then I also want you to talk about your core currency. What is your core currency? Right? And like list it out in the community. That'll be the 2 things that's going to be the challenge for this week. And I want everyone to hit that challenge. So, and then we can get into the next part, which is all about our ICPs. Cool. Cool, guys. Well, I went way over 2 hours instead, 2.5 hours. Shit. I'm sorry, guys. But you guys will have more than enough data here. All this other stuff will be recorded. It'll be a lot easier to go and consume. And let me know if you guys have any questions in the meantime. Okay, guys? Have a great weekend.